welcome to Prosperity Weekly. My name is Henry Eisenstein, and I'm with my co-host,
Bar Henderson here. We are going to be bringing you a weekly show that is all things business, things like investing, innovations, entrepreneurship, technology, personal finance, whatever can kind of grow you as an individual.
Yeah, so today we have the topics of principles, just like the book from the legendary billionaire Ray Dalio, which if you don't know who he is, founded the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater. And Bart, if you could frame for us exactly what type of principles we'll be discussing, we'll dive right in.
Right. So we all grow up and we form principles throughout our life, right? So essentially we say things like, it's good to help other people. It's bad to cheat. You have to be a man or a person of your word in business. These are kind of principles that we cover and that we are groomed with as we grow up. What the principles are that we're talking today are much more specific than that. Those are general principles. These are principles, and Ray Dalio suggests that you form principles so you can more easily make decisions. You know, a principle might be something like, not a general one, like I just want to be healthy, but my principle is I must work out 4 days a week, no matter what. And that's a life principle. We are going to talk about some of the principles that have helped us throughout our careers and throughout life moving forward, and dive into some of the ways that it can really help you to make tough decisions much, much easier.
So what principle would you like to discuss first? I'm curious, what's your first principle?
The first one I'm going to discuss is going to be one that Ray Dalio actually talks about in the book Principles. And then thereafter, there are all new ones that I've kind of developed. The one that I love that kind of captured the essence is called radical transparency. And so Ray Dalio posits that a company can't correctly operate unless everybody is practicing radical transparency. And what radical transparency is essentially being open and honest, truly and to the core. When I first read the book Principles, I thought that I always practiced radical transparency, but this really helped me tackle it head on. So I'll give you an example. In a company, if someone was to send you a snarky email, a regular person might just go, that's an annoying snarky email, it bothers me, and then think about it for 2 months. In my radical transparency that I operate in, I would email somebody back and say, hey, I didn't like the tone of that email. Let's make sure that moving forward, we're going to work within these parameters, and let's be respectful so that we build each other up, not take each other down. And so radical transparency is being open and honest all the time with people. I mean, I'm sure you've built radical transparency into your programs, right, Henry?
Yeah, I think radical transparency has actually, because of the day of technology, has both absolutely become almost near impossible to not be transparent because all the information's out there. And at the same time, it's made the people who are like, the business people who are trying to just pull one over on others, it's made it very, very difficult. So much of it going on right now. So yeah, I believe that it's kind of hard to grow a business without being radically transparent.
It's also hard to get people to be radically transparent, right?
Agreed.
Especially nowadays, younger people, they avoid conflict like the plague. I mean, it's like a thing
100%.
of our generation where people don't like conflict. And so radical transparency, it gives everyone permission in the company to say, look, this isn't conflict. This is something we need to get through in order to become better, in order to be more honest, in order to become more profitable, right? If you teach people you work with to practice radical transparency, it will become really something that can lift up and open your company to all sorts of new horizons. But I will tell you, it's harder to have younger people, I've found, kind of take this in because they don't want to be mean or have conflict. So that's
and I feel like it's about rewarding great behavior with younger individuals, because a lot of people on my team are younger. I feel like when I can constantly reward them for being radically transparent, it allows that compound effect in their mind to go, oh, this is a good thing. I should continue doing this.
That's a great point, because some companies say, oh, we want you to do this, but then they kind of pull back and they'll say, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have brought up that issue. But if you're saying to your teams, you're having a problem because you're getting too many leads, but you don't have the follow through on the other side, if they come to you with that problem, now you can fix it and you can say, thank you for bringing me that problem. I love that. That's
Absolutely.
a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just like a lot of things we'll talk about today, but just constantly looking out for those things. Like, hey, if you want radical transparency in your life and in your business, because me and my fiance, like I know that you and your wife are incredibly, we're very high communicators, right?
Yeah.
We love being radically transparent. And even I'm gonna be honest, even for myself, like it was very hard for me emotionally, like with my fiance, to be as transparent as we are today. But we've practiced it, and I even told her up day one, I'm like, listen, like this is something that's not easy for me because my family did not grow up like that. We never talked about anything. When you're in an environment where you're rewarded constantly for being radically transparent, like thank you, I appreciate this, I love you, right? Like saying these kinds of words help that person go, oh, okay, well, like this isn't so bad. Like it's actually a good thing for me to continue doing it.
I love that you're stepping out of the business arena and into the personal in this, because I can't agree more. I mean, when people ask me, my wife and I have been together 12 years, when they say like, oh, you have any tips or anything like that? I don't say radical transparency. I say be open and honest with your spouse. I use radical transparency as far as business, but it's really be radically transparent with your spouse. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife and I are open and honest. We tell each other everything, whether it bothers us or whether it's really good. But the point is, like, communicating, Henry, that's a really good point, is it helps in so many different aspects of life.
What's another principle that you'd like to dive into?
So this is one that we learned together, my friends. I don't know if you remember, but the next principle is do due diligence on the people you're working with. In business deals and things like that, I've always done due diligence on the deal itself. And I've always kind of wanted to surround myself with quote unquote good people. But Henry and I invested in the project, which I always say this full disclaimer first. We made our money back and got a good return on it. But for quite a while there, it looked like we weren't going to get our money back. And so we ran into a lot of problems. Wasn't a great investment, even though we made good money. And what it boiled down to was, if you Googled the person's name, not too much came up. Not bad, all good stuff. But if you found out and Googled the person's legal correct name, then you could find quite a bit of history negatively in this industry for financial things with this person. I came up with the principle of do due diligence. Henry's like containing his laughter over there in this project we did. I came up with the principle of you need to like actually research and do due diligence on the person, not just the business. So like the people you're getting involved with, you can't just trust them. Maybe not even because they're just out there in the public or they're known and people like them. You have to really do due diligence on the people as well. What's your take on that, Henry?
Yeah, like we just hired a new property management company, and I said I want 3 referrals of like references. Sorry, I wanted 3 references.
Right.
I also Googled them everywhere, called the references, and I didn't even say like, hey, like if you had and this is the way I did it. I called them up and I said, please, and I'm just curious, like I got your name from a friend of mine, and I'm curious if you could give me 3 referrals of property management companies. Like what would be one of the property management companies you refer me? I didn't even say the property management name.
I love
I
it.
just wanted to see if they would come up with the same name, just see how the experience was, right?
Yeah.
And it's like doing that kind of due diligence on any type of investment you're going to make, right? Like, obviously we're not talking about doing, stupid little things like investing in the stock market, in the S&P 500, but doing due diligence for large investments, business ventures, partnerships. I even like how you said close friendships, where like, even if hypothetically, like your best friend from college, right, comes to me, goes, hey, I'd like to start a bar and whatever. Like, okay, great. Do some due diligence, because like, just because it's your friend doesn't mean he's not saying about getting your best interest in heart, but more so of having the experience levels and or maybe past history you don't know about.
Yeah, and that goes to what we talked about earlier, which is this makes making decisions easier. If you have a principle that I need to do due diligence and the person has to pass due diligence, right? And then you get into a business proposition with a great example of a best friend where you're about to move forward. If you don't have a principle, then you just go, oh, well, he's my best friend. So even though the due diligence wasn't great, I found out he had a couple marks on his record that might be bad for the business. I'm still going to move forward because he's the best friend. Whereas if you have a principle, do due diligence and stick to that due diligence, that makes your answer real easy. It's, oh, hey, I know you're my best friend, but I have a principle that I have to do due diligence, and I'm sorry you didn't pass that, so I can't move forward. This isn't an emotional thing or anything like that. It's just one of my principles I stick to.
And you can even just say it's your investment partner or something, like, oh, my partner that like, hey, like I always used to say with people when it came to the stock world, I said, listen, I only do investments with one broker, right? Like if it was just, if I did the due diligence and like things did not check out, I'd always just say something like, oh, well, I typically only invest with one specific stock broker. Thanks.
Yep.
I also wanted to add one also that I feel like has to do with this type of investment, which is before even looking to invest, one of my key ones is invest in yourself first. Because if you have not invested in yourself in that thing, I'd rather spend, instead of spending like hypothetically on like a IPO on a business. Have you invested in yourself to understand how the stock market works? Do you need
Right.
like spending $1,000 or $500 on books
Mm.
around the stock market, a course around the stock market? Do you even know how it works before you
Right.
invest in real estate? Have you bought a course in real estate? Do you actually understand the fundamentals of real estate, or are you just
Yeah.
randomly investing in something that you heard was a decent idea?
Right. So invest in the education, it sounds like.
Yes.
So really invest in yourself first. I like that. I like that. That's a good one. Essentially giving yourself the education to even understand what you're getting into.
It's also hard to do due diligence in something you don't know what due diligence might mean,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, look, I have some investors like you do for days, but where it's like I could trust them. Like I could blindly trust some of these people.
Yeah.
They say it's good, probably good, right? Like they've
Right.
done well before, they're probably going to do well again. However, it's like I also want to know what I'm investing in, to what extent I'm investing in, and how, like, what are my actual risks? Because,
Exactly.
just because someone has had a decent track record doesn't mean I don't want to understand it.
That's
Right.
exactly it. Like you and I were just talking quickly before this call about solar, right? And it's like, I don't know anything about solar deals. I know this person might be good. I've got to do some due diligence into solar itself and understand that before I'm even going to move forward. So support those who support you. You know me, Henry. You know, this is kind of how I live. I give business to everybody I know. I mean, we had over 300 landed referrals in the last 3 years to people that we work with, right? So we always support those that do business with us and support us. And that might mean anything. I mean, support could come in so many ways. Support could be a like on a video or a share, or just reaching out with a text saying, hey, I really liked that. Are you having a great week? Whatever the support might be. What this principle really turned into for me is learning to cut off those who don't support you. There's a lot that we give. You're a giving person too, right? We give, give, give. But there comes a point where if others aren't supporting you, then you need to stop supporting them and you need to stop pushing things that way. Now, referrals and business is not horse trading. It's not like, Henry, I gave you 4 referrals. I want you to give me 4 referrals back. What it is in my eyes is, Henry, if I give you 2 referrals or 5 referrals or 10 referrals, and then you go out and buy promotional products from another promotional products company for a big project and it's not me, like, why aren't you supporting me with that, right? So for those of you who don't know, I have a promotional products company. And so to me, it's support those, keep supporting the community. But if other people are referring away from you or not using you, like, maybe don't put your energy there. And that was really tough for me because I give so much and I'll keep giving and keep giving until finally someone in my life said, you've given that person like 5 clients and they're not even purchasing their products from you when I went to their event. And I was like, whew, that's an interesting perspective.
A great thing to think about for every person in your life, actually. Like my fiance and I are very deliberate with the people that we spend time with. We need to support our businesses to the point of, I can give you numerous examples. My barber wasn't giving me any referrals, went to them for 6 months.
Yeah.
Not a single person. I don't need to, I can go, anybody can cut my hair. At the same time, where it's like, I want to go to somebody who like wants to support me, wants to go out of their way and support my business. Like, hey, I'm going to support you. And I send them like 2 referrals at the same time. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to go to just any barber. The people that like we invite over for dinner, we've invited a couple over for dinner like 3 times, hosted them a million times. They have a successful business. And like, like they haven't invited us to anything. They have never they have never tried to support our businesses, never in any aspect. It's like, why do we keep going out of our way to support people who don't support us, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So it's like
Now,
it's a great way of just personal and professional.
and the question in therein lies is, at what point are you being a good person? At what point are you just helping others? And at what point are you getting to take advantage of? I guess. Right?
Exactly right. But and just in knowing there is such a thing. Like there is you giving, which is a really wonderful thing. Like having our mindset of being so giving, like not the give to get mentality, but just like truly I like to support people. And the fact of like, hey, like I've been doing this for quite some time for somebody and there is zero reciprocation.
Totally.
Where's the benefit there, right? Because you could be giving those to anybody.
The pivot for me was an organization that we worked with. My wife and I had donated probably around $2,000 to the organization over a year, right? Or something of that nature. We were trying to work with them. We show up to an event and they had promotional products all from another company. And I'm thinking to myself, how many other promotional products companies are donating money to them, right? And so it really became obvious to me of like what, especially in business, personally it might be different, but especially in business, you need to support those businesses that are supporting you, you know?
100%. And there's going to be plenty of them. And it's just being cognizant of who is and who isn't.
How do you practice this? So the next one is seek crystal clarity, right? So this could be in business, this could be in life, a couple different things. But I know that I've been on a bunch of business phone calls where someone said something and I thought I had the gist of what they're saying, but there might have been something missing. And in the past, I might have let it slide. But I've found that seeking crystal clarity is important. So Henry, do you have, with people you work with or with your team or something, do you guys have any ways that you do seek crystal clarity or that you reconnect to make sure things happen correctly in that sense?
My fiance hates this because like I'm an analytical personality wise. I love asking questions. Like if I don't understand, typically like in meetings, I'll be like, listen, I need to take some time to review this.
Right.
I can't make a rash decision this moment.
Right.
I haven't had time to review it. And I'm not doing that because I might not have an answer of what I'd like to do, but I truly just want to understand what I'm about to get involved in. And I'm the kind of person who will read an entire agreement start to finish or anything I'm getting involved with because I just want to actually understand, right? Like, if I'm buying a property, I want to go tour it. I want to look at it. I want to get my hands on it. I want to feel it. Like, it's like looking at so when I look at these types of things, I like to take time to specifically look into something, ask, and then come back and say like, hey, I actually came up with these questions for this before I get involved. Just curious if you can answer them for me kind of thing.
Yep. That's really good. I think one place this comes across in everyday life for everyone who's watching this video is like crystal clarity and price, things of that nature. So let's say whether it's a big business deal, like you're talking about going and seeing a property and closing on a property, or whether it's something like you have somebody coming to give you an HVAC quote for your heater that's broken. Well, hey, before you come over, like, what does it cost for you to do this service call? It's one thing for you to have an expectation that a service call costs $200. It's another, if their company's policy as well, it's $500, but we take it off of whatever we need to fix, or something of that nature. So just getting crystal clarity on price, getting crystal clarity on direction that I've seen is really good with employees. I might be a real kind of broad thought-minded type of person. So I'll say, hey, we need a marketing plan that does A, B, and C. And that's not enough direction for people I work with. So I need them to ask me for crystal clarity on, well, what do you really mean by B? I understand A and C, but what do you mean by B? So working back and forth with partners and people and getting clarity on what they mean and what they expect.
Yeah. And sometimes emails or text messages can be misconstrued, right? So it's like knowing like, hey, like, what did you mean by that? I give somebody a call and be like, hey, like, I just read your email. Do you mind if you just clarify for me what you meant by that? One
of the last ones that I wrote down before I get into a personal one is essentially the idea of not letting emotions rule you. We all use emotions consciously and subconsciously every day. Can you give an example, or can you think of any ways which you try to steer away from using emotions, or in business, things of that nature?
Most things in business that aren't people related, I think should be looked at with zero emotion. Even performance of an employee should be looked at as black and white. Was X completed? What was not completed? How well was it completed? And what time frame was it completed? I'd say most actions in general in business are pretty much, at least should be viewed, in my opinion, with no emotion. And like if they're a great employee because of the results that they actually draw, like based on data, you keep them around. And then based off of data, if they're terrible based on performance. And by the way, morale is something you can track, right? So it's like even emotional things like that, you can track that, right? Oh, well, it's good for the culture.
So this is why I love when you and I get together, my man, because we have such a variance in views on so many things. And while I agree that it's ideal not to have emotion in business, one thing that I hate is when people say business is business, and 100%. And emotions are emotions, and family. My wife and I have talked about this many times. Business is emotional. If
it 100% is.
Just like to your point, if someone went out, if you went out and ordered $100,000 of promotional products and it wasn't from me, I'd be emotionally hurt. I'd be like, what the heck? What's going on here? So as much as people say business is business, I think that's a total BS excuse for people to do bad things often.
I agree 100%. When that type of system, like when that comes up, I
Yeah.
agree that you're going to feel emotional. I'm saying in the sense of the decision you would make in regards to being emotional
Yep.
gets to be more black and white. I agree 100%. Like, I think I'm a very emotional person, actually. Like, I'm very, like, even firing a few employees that were terrible in my past, people who have
Yep.
stolen from me, people who, you know, not just regular employee didn't do their job kind of thing, right? Firing them was still difficult, but I believe that it's regardless of the emotion of saying like, hey, like, even let's just say that, you know, I went around that. It's like, hey, like, say I had a client that in that circumstance, be like, hey, I noticed that you did this and this and this. I'm curious to understand more around the back history as to why you didn't use us. Getting
I
that
have
kind of
only heard people say business is business when they're doing something bad. I mean, like,
agreed.
or
100%.
immoral. You know, like I
100%.
have gotten paid out on so many deals, and I've actually had people say to me, "Oh, well, that person technically didn't do this, and business is business." And I'm like, "Whoa, so you're trying to tell me a way of why you're screwing this person by saying business is business?" Kind of getting off track on that, but I hate that phrase because I think people use it to just say money's all that matters when, you know, business is emotional. You and your wife run your businesses emotionally. Me and my wife, we run things emotionally. So while
Yeah,
business is business, there's an emotional aspect to it.
I agree.